Hi, guys. Welcome to this episode of the Trainer Feed. We are your hosts. I am Angel Sanchez.
This is David Bravo.
And Jacques Delajet.
Nice.
Cool. We have a good one today. We're going to be chatting with Marie Mantz, who's a Pilates instructor. And hopefully we'll get some insight in the world of Pilates from somebody that's actually in it, basically. Real quick, R.I.P. DMX. That's my boy.
And Prince Philip.
And I guess Prince Philip for Jacques.
I don't know why I'm smiling. It's not funny,
DMX was very inspirational growing up, and his music was fire. You always hear that in New York City, bumping, and people just blasting out his music. So, R.I.P. to him. Prince Philip also, he was a philanthropist. He did, create a lot of things, but
he's not quite DMX.
He's not quite DMX. I mean, in a lot of ways, but yeah. All right, cool. Let's bring in Marie. Hello.
Hi, Marie.
Hello.
Hey, how's it going?
What's up, Marie? Sorry for the little mix-up earlier.
No, you're totally fine. Gotta love COVID.
How you doing?
I'm good. I'm in a new apartment, so I'm a little.
Yeah, you just moved.
Yeah, we went from a tiny shoebox to now what feels like a mansion. So.
Ooh,
that's the upgrade.
Nice.
Gotta love it.
Seriously, you gotta love COVID for lowering these prices. I hate to say it. But...
If there's one positive, there's a few positives that came out of it. It's New York rentals going down for sure.
Yeah. I mean, relatively. I guess. I mean, you can't say that. I think for me at least, I don't think I can move into Soho anytime soon. Even if
financial. Soho and Chelsea are still pretty. They lower their rents, but it's still up there. Yeah.
Actually, surprisingly, me and my roommate found a spot in Soho for I think it was originally and we didn't move there, but I think it was originally $3,400 a month, and it went down to $2,700 a month.
Damn.
Was it a 1 or 2 bedroom?
It was a 2-bedroom.
Wow.
And we've actually seen 3 bedrooms. We almost thought about doing a 3-bedroom because the rent was $2,700 for a 3-bedroom.
Wow.
In nice areas.
That's
with an
not
elevator
bad.
building. It wasn't doorman, but it had an elevator. It was 3-bedroom. We're like, should we make this an office?
Wow.
It
Or
works
you
from
make it a
home.
home gym or something. Yeah.
The home gym could be your little acting studio.
Yeah.
Cool. So you remember the guys from the gym, right?
What?
You remember these guys from 76th Street?
Yes, of course. Yeah.
So I wanted to thank you for being on this episode. I wanted to have somebody who's in the Pilates industry, basically chat with us about it, because we've chatted about it in the past, but it wasn't from, somebody that was an instructor or somebody that has, put in time to study about it. How was your transition into Equinox and into Pilates? Because you were a dancer as well.
Yes. I feel like.
Was that how it kind of transitioned in?
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure anytime you meet a Pilates instructor, 99% of the time they were dancers or are dancers. Just because you get so used to form and biomechanics. I mean, even in personal training, but I think just the little details and the nuances you kind of become obsessed with. And then thankfully I was lucky enough that I had a teacher that was very hands-on with form and understanding what your body's doing. So then when I went into Pilates, I mean, I was just doing it for core exercise because I have a weak-ish core, just being very hypermobile. I always feel like I have to work a little bit harder just to keep myself from falling apart or hyperextending. And then it just kind of became an obsession, because with dance you're used to thinking about 10 things at once when you're doing something, and then Pilates kind of has that same kind of way about it. And then it just kind of took off from there of oh wow, I can do this, give people proper form, because as we all have seen, when someone is doing terrible form, it just irks us to the core, and you're like, oh my god, why are you doing that? So yeah, so I kind of wanted to go into it from there of let me help somebody with good form, because I know I personally feel better when I do something correctly. And it's kind of, yeah, I mean, it's kind of awesome. And then, yeah, so it kind of turned into Pilates, and then obviously Equinox had an opening. So I was like, why not? Let's do this. Yeah.
Did you do your training through Equinox? Because I know they have that training.
No, I did it through, actually, I think at the time I didn't realize Equinox had a teacher training program, but I did it through just one of the Pilates studios in Manhattan. My friend, who was a dancer, she went to the studio called Gramercy Pilates, and then eventually just through word of mouth. And I was like, oh yeah, why not? And then, yeah.
Cool. Are you still doing that predominantly? Are you still doing that predominantly, like Pilates, and are you still dancing a little bit, or no?
Oh no, I got out of dance completely. I think once I quit dance, that was when I was like, okay, let's get certified, and yeah, so did that.
Cool. Yeah, no, you mentioned earlier about basically you being very flexible and mobile, and I've trained dancers in the past. I've trained Lauren. Do you remember Lauren, all the Pilates instructors as well? And the biggest thing always was, and when I've trained you, it's like, all right, you have great mobility, but how about we maybe not move your pelvis all the way, all the way
or breathing differently?
Yeah, can we so that's the thing too. Can you touch upon that? Like, whenever you get a new client, or whenever a friend of yours or whatever wants to learn about Pilates, how do you teach breathing? Like, how is that normally taught in the Pilates world when you have your client?
Oh God, this is like a whole thing, a whole rabbit hole you can go down on this one. I mean, obviously what helps a lot is just tactile teaching. I guess, I mean, you notice a lot of times either people are a belly breather, a chest breather, or just their breathing is totally flipped or something. So I think it's teaching friends or whatnot, cues definitely make a difference. Like, I can say one thing 10 different ways, and it's like the 9th time is when it hits properly on someone how to breathe. But most of the time when it's teaching someone how to breathe, it's like, put your hands around your rib cage, just feeling how you're inhaling and exhaling. And then as you start to feel, on the exhale, your ribs are coming together, start to bring your belly button to your spine. So, I mean, that's one way of doing it. Or lying on their back is a little bit easier to feel because you just feel your stomach drop. Or if you're on hands and knees, you're exhaling, so you have to work against gravity. So it can go different ways.
There are many ways for you to teach it, basically.
Yeah, I hope I'm answering this.
No, that's great. Because the thing when it comes to, I think, us as working with strength or just strength work, you and I have had the conversation of, I personally, when I taught you or when I was teaching anyone else, it's like, okay, I want you to breathe into your belly. I want you to have that 360 breath, which I guess is all ties into, also in Pilates, they're like, you want a 360 breath, but you want to brace, not pulling the belly button in, kind of like bracing against it. Like you have a weight, like an imaginary belt around you, and you're trying to brace against it to create more intra-abdominal pressure. And I've recently had a session yesterday with someone at Equinox, and they do Pilates. And I said, all right, before we do anything, let's kind of turn off the Pilates mentality of breathing, because you want to have as much intra-abdominal pressure and, tightness to, preserve your lower back when you're lifting weights. It doesn't have to be 1,000,000 pounds or anything, but just in general, because you want to be able to continuously progress. So I think that method of breathing is really beneficial. And I think in Pilates, it's very good for when you're doing when I took Pilates years ago, it was like bridge up. And I'm so used to keeping everything so tight, and I just went straight up with my hips. And then I forgot who it was. They're like, no. I was like, wait. I was like, what did I do wrong? They're like, no, I want you to peel yourself up off the ground or something like that. And I'm like, I don't know how the fuck to do that. It's like, it's so foreign to me.
Yeah, it's interesting. Different. I would say with the breathing part, which is wild, it's the complete reverse. was rotating to Pilates. And then even just as you said, like the peeling up was really high. I remember I had Lou come in. Y'all remember Lou, the soccer player? He came in and he was dying after like 10 minutes. And it's just like,
all sweating bullets.
One, make sure you're breathing. Because I guess a lot of people don't realize you have to breathe while you're in Pilates, and it gets you to, you know, move. But it's just, I guess it's also like the length and the articulating that kind of gets a lot of people. So it's definitely interesting how
Cool.
Awesome. Hi, Marie.
Hi.
Hey, I'm going to ask a couple of questions in regards to like some exercises that I've heard of, and then also like some exercises that you kind of want people to do and do correctly. Long story short, what's one of the most underrated exercises in Pilates that you see? Like something that you get a lot of bang for your buck, because as personal trainers, sometimes there are bigger things that you want to tackle, but these small steps help. For example, people don't know how to plank well, or they don't know how to engage the core well, like you guys were talking about, or something as small as like a pelvic tilt. They don't know how to do that. So these are the small things that have a bigger impact, but they're really underrated in personal training. So what about you for Pilates? What are some exercises that are pretty underrated in your book? Don't think too hard about it.
Please.
It's like thousands of exercises that are going through your head right
so
now.
Many exercises going through your head right now.
Everything.
Well, what about, let's break it down a little bit. So like, what are some body parts or like some movement patterns, like let's say lower body or upper body? So maybe breaking it down like that, like what are some articulations that people just don't know how to do, whether it's like utilizing their toes in order to do exercises of the foot in order to have a better foundation, or like for hands and, you know, core work and things like that?
Kind of what you said before, just teaching someone how to plank properly. I would say just scapular stability is a big one. I don't think a lot of people don't realize how their shoulder blade moves. So literally just doing like protraction, retraction, even I had one client where she couldn't do it with her arms up. She only did it with her arms to the side, because I get like your shoulders are naturally down. So the second she did that, it was more just like her shoulders would go up. So I think just that simple movement is just getting that awareness of like how your shoulder blade moves, how much like mobility you have there, and how much like when you're in that plank, just feeling that protraction when you're planking. Because we've had people come in a plank and that like their shoulder blades are still squeezing together. And you're like, no, you want to push away from the floor. And the second you get them in the right position, they're like, holy shit. I'm like, yeah, that's what you're supposed to feel. Especially it's really funny when like skinny me teaches someone how to do it properly. I'm like, yeah, that's how you do it. Don't let the tininess fool you. But anyway, yeah, that's just that simple one of just teaching protraction, retraction of your shoulder blades. It's just like so far into a lot of people. So that one is definitely one in Pilates that we try to like kind of squeeze in there when it's a comp, or even just clients you've had for a while, just to like get the brain waking up on that one. Yeah.
That brings up a couple of points, but yeah, I'll start with this one. Whenever I speak to somebody or I'm having them do a plank in a comp and a complementary, session or what have you, you notice that sometimes there are these compensations or these little things that people don't really think about. And then you have to say, all right, stop. We're going to continue to do this exercise. However, we're going to segue and kind of talk about how the shoulder moves, right? We got protraction, retraction, elevation, depression, and then their minds get blown. And then you have to like break it down. I just want you to focus on depression right now, because right now it's a lot of this shrugging movement, and we don't need that, right? We're rowing. We don't need to like tense up here. We need to drop down, and then we also need to squeeze. We need to retract. So it's interesting that you brought that up, because I do notice that that happens a lot. Even for something, we had another guest on a while back who was talking about pull downs and lat pull downs specifically, but I noticed that sometimes people do the opposite. Like they hike up their shoulders and then they pull down kind of like elbows to rib cage, but keeping the shoulders up, which is completely not what the movement is supposed to be. We've all seen our fair share.
Angel, can you demonstrate that?
I think I was trying to, but YouTubers can kind of like little raise the roof action.
Like this the entire time.
Yeah, no, they're like this. There's a lady at 76 who's
I
like
know.
this the whole time. It's like she's doing a muscle up, or she doesn't finish it. Like if she did the actual like muscle up motion with the lat pull down, I'll probably be okay with that. But she's just like, and it's just not efficient. I don't want to say wrong because I very easily I like saying that's wrong, but it's like just not
dumb
efficient. It may be dumb.
Nah, we'll say questionable for practicality or functionality. Maybe
there you go.
I guess
that's better.
Throw
words at it.
The other thing is too, Pilates is still one of those very foreign things to people, like automatically. And I've been noticing this more and more. The second I say I'm a Pilates instructor, I've had people automatically sexualize it. Of like, oh, you want to give me that one-on-one? And it's like,
oh no,
suck a dick.
Oh,
sorry,
wow,
let's go.
Or then it's just like, you go into a Pilates studio and it looks like, I hate to say it looks like 50 Shades of Grey, of like a Cadillac, so it's like, it gets really
the springs and got the little fuzzy,
when you have
little fuzzies.
The fuzzies, the fuzzies.
David knows all too well, I guess.
There you go.
It gets really frustrating because you have to prove 10 times more that this is actually a workout. Like I had some guy come in who automatically thought this was an entire joke. And I was just like, this is frustrating. It's like you're not coming in with an open mind. It's really hard. So teaching like the nuances and the small details, it sometimes gets really frustrating because when you're on these machines, I feel like it's a little bit easier to get when it's with weights because like, okay, you can pick things up, you lift them down, it's not like there's springs, there's fuzzies, there's, it's because Pilates is a lot like, it's mostly resistance, it's a lot of your body weight, but then you just add a little bit of a spring tension.
Wasn't there Joe Pilates, didn't he create Pilates for
men,
right? Yeah.
Men. And I had this one person come in and he was being all like macho, and I was like, oh, this is created for guys. And he's like, well, there's a difference between guys and men. I'm like, are you?
Oh, wow. Oh my God.
What was his definition?
Well,
how did he define it then?
Like, well, okay, well, this was created for men. He's like, well, I'm right. This wasn't, and I'm right. I'm like,
oh my God.
I'm like, oh my God.
Some people are exhausting.
So it gets really frustrating in Pilates. Yeah.
There's so many. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead, Angel.
No, it was just, I don't know. Like there's a lot that people don't really understand. And I feel like maybe 76th Street was one thing. Maybe it's not like that all around, but maybe it would help if it's like a kind of like the same attention that you draw to personal training in a gym, you can draw the same attention to Pilates. For example, like the way that the studio or where the placement of the studio kind of seems like it's hidden away. And it's kind of like in this area where there's like a yoga studio across from it. So it's like, I don't know, like hidden.
And automatically people are like, oh, it's just like yoga. And you're like,
Right. Like the placement of it wasn't with everything else, right? Versus if it was in the middle of the floor or on the floor, just over to a side where you can have like a controlled environment, but it's still an open space, that might make it seem different, right? And then people's perception of what it is or what they can benefit from it will be completely different, right?
It's true.
Put the reformer next to the squat rack.
A
couple of squats. And then go right next to it and do your exercise. Do your what do you call it? The hundreds?
Yeah, no, there's literally there was one client. Me and David have a client in common, and like I was having her do squats on one of the machines. It's like you just load the springs differently, and then you're literally like got the bar, usually like the roll down bar. You have it on your shoulders instead. It's sprung from below, and then you can do squats this way. But Yeah.
I
It's definitely true. Like placing it differently. Like I've gone to. I mean, we've all been to different locations, and automatically, depending on where it is, it definitely changes the perspective. Like going to sports club. I mean, their Pilates studio is
huge, right? It's same floor as the yoga studio, but it's big, open, so much light, right?
And the other thing is some of them in the machines they have, because Balanced Body is meant for taller people. And then at 76th Street, they have Grotz, which is not meant for a 6'2" man. It's
Struggles.
like narrow. And then I'm just like moments like these, I'm like, I don't know what to give you because you're 6'4".
Do you change it into like a Pilates mat session?
What?
Would you have to change it into like a Pilates mat session?
Then it turns into that. And then when it's that, then it's like, then it's like, okay, why would I be paying $110 for this? And you're like, oh.
That's tough.
It's kind of, yeah, I've gotten that statement before about shit like that, and it's like
to foam roll for 20 minutes while I'm paying.
And I'm just like, and they're like, well, I could be doing this amount. I'm like, yeah, but you're not gonna be doing it right.
Yeah. But then I had one person, and it's like when you get those people, you're like, all right, let me just
show you the door. Yeah, here's the door.
Like there was one guy I had who did CrossFit, but it was kind of one of those people that kind of threw himself into it, and like you could tell they weren't engaging it, but they're doing it anyway. And then I had him on, and I was doing certain exercises. He's like, oh, my back is hurting. I was like, okay, well, can you draw your stomach in? And he's like, oh, I am, but my back is still hurting. Or meanwhile, like, you have no concept from your head to your toe. And then he just wanted to like rush through things. And I'm like, all right, I'm just going to get you through this. Okay.
And so to that point as well, right? When whether it's like a defense mechanism to get out of it or to not do it or to prove he doesn't think he needs it. You said if he's on his back on the Reformer, the Cadillac, and there's springs, right? So there's maybe not a direct load placed on his body, but he's going against resistance along the board of the Reformer. But you think that, and he's got, quote, back pain. But if he's doing CrossFit, he's very most likely loading a huge or heavier loads on his body or placing a lot of stress on his body, whether it be deadlifts, push press, whatever. So it's interesting where there's but if you get pain at certain movements that are probably breaking down or showing your asymmetries or deficiencies, those are probably very present when you're doing CrossFit. That's pretty fair to say, right?
Oh yeah, 100%. I think it was just like one of those things where you can tell like the CrossFit mind of just like blasting through things. I mean, I'm not saying
time. Let's just go. Come on, yeah.
But it's like it's literally that I think for him, his mentality. I was like, I just wanted to like slow things down, and I think in his that's where it was, where it's like, okay, I'm gonna slow this down because you have to feel the resistance because you can't fly through this. And I think it was for him. It's like, okay, well, I don't like this. It's like, well,
yeah,
it's hard. There's my girlfriend is also an instructor, and I was a guinea pig when she was doing her hours of education and learning. So in the beginning, I wasn't very open about it. I'm very honest about saying that I wasn't. Yeah. It took me a while for me to get my head around it, and one reason was because it was always humbling. Because like you mentioned, if trunk stability is an area of opportunity for you or a weakness, it highlights that. It humbles you, and it really highlights that. And as humans, it's maybe in the fitness professional world of like ourselves, we're able to say, you know what, I have weaknesses A, B, and C. I'm going to work on A for the next couple months and whatever. But maybe for most humans, we don't feel comfortable being shown that we're weak at something, right? We're in a very competitive world. We live in the New York market, which is very competitive. So why would we do something which constantly reminds us that we're weak? At least that was sort of my first impression on why I struggled to enjoy it, because and then it's also different when you work out with your partner. That's got a whole other element of like dynamics. So, but my trunk stability is still somewhat weak, but was weaker back then. And she would exploit it. She'd be like, you need to do this, you'll core this. She'd also give me like 10 commands when she's also a dancer. So she, like you said, dancers can take on the 5 different cues or 10, right? And then I think, did you touch on neutral spine is different in training to Pilates as well, right? So that also throws me off. But
it's a complete like, whoop.
right? So do neutral spine. I am. No, it's this. I'm like, oh, hang on, like it's taking me a while. But I think there was also a NFL, he's retired now, an NFL athlete. I'd love to find the video and share it with the group and everything, but this guy was in insane shape, and I never forget his quote when he was doing Pilates in the video. He said, "This is the hardest workout I've ever done." Right, and the guy could push, pull, clean, whatever, however many pounds, was very in shape, and again, high level athlete. But Pilates got him. He's like, his quote was, "This is the hardest workout I've ever done," and he was sweating buckets. But it goes, as you said, if you were to rush through a movement on Performer or Cadillac, oh, sorry, the Reformer, sorry. Yeah, it's like anything, any movement, right? Like with squats, if you were to do a half rep, if you just to rush it and do shit for reps, it translates to every movement. So I think it's like, where was I going with this? Just to say that professional athletes, that when they do it and they give the time, there's also, I'm a big tennis fan, and Andy Murray was, when he was rehabbing, was very sworn to doing Pilates for his recovery, and was like, same thing. I wish I did this sooner, you know? And
didn't Kobe do Pilates?
I saw
videos of
LeBron.
Kobe doing it.
I want to say LeBron James does a lot of Pilates. No?
Yeah. No, I've seen videos, I think, of him like chatting about how he's added Pilates to his regimen. I don't know.
I want to say LeBron does a lot. I guess. Go on, Marie.
Yeah, I think it's also one of those things. I think in the past maybe 5 years, I mean, the fitness culture has just blown up completely. And I think just a lot of people think like, okay, if it's a fast workout and I'm sore every single day and I'm like, well, then it's working. And I think it's just like that gets into a lot of people's mind.
Yeah.
Mindsets, yeah.
And like Pilates hasn't, like, it's only blown up in the last 10 years. It's still considered like pretty new, I guess to say. And I think that's just like part of it of like, okay, well, Pilates, you have to actually think about it. And it's so funny too, because my roommate, she's a project manager. So for her, she's in a very high stressful job. And she read this that like for anything, like, so she likes high intensity workouts. And it was like she read that people who are in high stressful jobs, they like the high intensity workouts because they're used to the high intensity.
It's go, go, go. There's no time to rest.
So the second it's like you have something where you actually have to think about it, it's kind of jarring. And I think that's also part of it too, of like, okay, no, you actually have to pause for a second, breathe, think about what you're doing. And I think a lot of people don't. You know what I mean? It's like kind of a hard concept.
The biggest thing I think, to your point, is there's so many influencers on the gram, on, you know, just on magazines, that everything is like go, go, go. If you're not sweating, you're not doing it right. If you're not sore as fuck the next day, you didn't do anything, you know. And that's when I think the go, go, go mentality comes from too. It's like, no, you don't have to be crazy sore. You will if you're a beginner. I think it's fair to say if you're a newer person into the fitness industry, you will get pretty sore all the time. But that doesn't mean you need to stay sore every fucking day, you know, every time you're working out. And you need to stop and think of like, wait, no, I need to do this right. And if I want to do it right, I need to have adequate rest. Because once your body's fatigued, what's the term that people say? Your body goes through the path of least resistance. Is that the term, right? It's like once you're fatigued, your body's just gonna go in a weird place, not the place we want to do it, right? And second, that requires rest. If you're doing a heavy 5RM, you're gonna need 2 minutes at least. And some people are like, for 2 minutes, what the fuck am I doing? I'm not doing anything. Yeah. And I'm in the world of reps of 5 to 6. Anything over 6, something like 8 or 10, I'm dying. You know, it's like, oh shit. But just because it's, you know, it takes time, especially to do it right.
Yeah, I think it comes down to no one wants to slow down, or like, I mean, that goes through life. But yeah, I think when it's like a workout, it's like, oh no, I have to go fast and I have to do this. Like, no, you need to pause for a hot second, think about it. blowing mind, but yeah. So.
What are some exercises that you do in comp sessions that you find are really valuable for some of your clients, like in general? Because sometimes people might, for the person who's coming in, they don't really know what to expect from Pilates, and they're just trying to get quote unquote in shape. What are some exercises that are go-tos for you?
I would say one of them being just to curl up on the reformer, because you have the straps in your hands, so you have to like feel the tension when you curl up. That one is a big one, because the second, like, y'all know shoulders are going up. I mean, no matter what it is, like you'll see, you'll have them do whatever exercise it is, and you're like, oh no, they need to get the shoulders down. So it's interesting seeing them do a curl up with straps, and you're like, okay, can you reach this further away from you? And the second they're like, oh my god, I was like, yeah, you're gonna feel like, I'm not gonna say you're a serratus because that's too much, but I'm just like, oh yeah, you're feeling this kick. I'm like, yeah, that's what you want to feel when you curl up, even though like without the tension, you're not gonna feel much, but you're gonna feel that. You should feel that. So that's a big one. Because already you can see the shaking, the breathing. I was like, all right, we're working. The breathing's gotten harder. Okay. And then I think it was another one. Just any balance work on the reformer. Oh, actually, no. What's a big one? Doing a plank on the reformer. So it'll be like your hands are on the bar. You're on one spring. Oh, and that's a great one when they think like more springs are like, oh, more tension. I'm like, oh, complete opposite. So it'll be like, hands will be on the bar, your feet will be up against the shoulder rests. And so you have to like hold this plank, and you literally have to like,
I've done that
your
one.
body to like keep you in. And then like an ab roller, you'll press out, and then you have to like pull it back in. So that's a big one. And everyone's like, holy shit. And I'm like, yeah. So yeah, those are the two I can think of that are really shocking to a lot of people. I was like, welcome to Pilates.
Yeah. It seems like a lot of core work. Like that's what most people are just definitely missing. And I think the same holds true for PT. That and glutes. I think that most people can benefit. Like they're just like, oh, I want to get in shape. It's like, all right, core, glutes, and then the rest will follow after that. All of us, so David, myself, and Jacques are different in regards to our paths when it comes to coaching, as personal trainers and as coaches. How do things differ between instructor to instructor in regards to Pilates? Is it something similar? Do you guys have like a relative similar mindset and then you kind of branch out from there? Is it your backgrounds that you go into Pilates with that kind of differentiates one Pilates instructor from another?
Yeah, I think definitely I was one person in our studio who didn't have a dance background. So she did more, I think she did mixed martial arts and weight training.
At 76?
Yeah, Veronica.
Yeah, she did martial arts, stuff like that.
Wow, that's cool.
So she did that. So her training was definitely different to mine. Ashley was dancer. Yeah, I mean, mostly I feel like even all the dancers had a different way of doing it. But I think it collectively, everyone kind of had the same mental or way of doing it, I would assume. But it was always interesting being in the studio with who else was teaching, and you can just hear like the tone might be a little different. Well, I mean, that goes without saying, everyone's tone is different, but I think just like their flow, or yeah, like the little things, I would say.
Yeah, it seems like there's like little nuances sometimes, even with coaches, like the way that they articulate the cues is different than another coach. For example, one of either David or yourself said something about like peeling your back up off the ground, which is something that I wouldn't say, but I would try to say like lift each vertebrae up from the ground in a sequential order, and then do the opposite and just drop them down, sequentially. But yeah, I definitely can see how sometimes the background can influence that, but also how you communicate cues and things like that. I'll let Jacques take over from here because I know he has some questions.
I mean, you've touched on some of it already, but what are some of the other misconceptions that, or if you could have some examples of misconceptions that clients have had or members have had, and then what have been some of the more effective ways that you have broken those down? You mentioned the spring, for example, but if you had other examples.
Sorry, ask that one more time.
Yeah. So there's a few. So what are some of the biggest misconceptions about Pilates, and how do you typically break those down or break the barrier of those misconceptions?
There are times I've probably given too much information to people and it like blows their mind and makes them really intimidating. I'm like, I swear to you, it's not. It's a lot of information. I mean, as the misconception being like, oh, it's like yoga, or it's only dancers do this, or only old ladies do this, or
like when someone says that and you get them in the room, besides them being 6'4" possibly, and it being difficult to do the reform, I guess what I can tie in with this is whether it be that sort of person, or how does the programming aspect become of it? Because in personal training, I think when I speak for three of us, our mindset typically says, all right, can I get this person to squat properly, to hinge properly, to push and most likely pull? When it comes to Pilates, what's the thought process when you get someone for the first time, or what's that thought process look like?
I mean, we have our PCI forums. I'm sure you guys have something different. But you basically
What's PCI?
You
fill out the questionnaire of like, okay, what are you working on, your goals, or whatever.
Oh yeah.
And if it's like, I want stronger core.
To tone up. I'm sure you've heard that one.
Oh, tone up. Yes, lose weight. I'm like, okay, like
shape up.
So funny. And it always comes down to like, okay, what can we give them that's already gonna, I guess, murder a muscle group off the bat? Because again, you gotta like prove it that this is work, and it pisses me off so much. But if it's like someone like 6'4", lucky enough, I've had tall clients and they're like for it, so it's I'm like, okay, this is going to be tough. But it definitely, it's like depending on which machine, so it could be like the reformer or the Cadillac, and already I know like, okay, we're gonna go straight into this exercise because you're already gonna feel something. So I think it's just like, okay, which exercise are you gonna feel the most right off the bat? And it's literally like, okay, like if we're on the Cadillac, we're gonna do this. If we're on the reformer, we're gonna do this. So that's kind of how you
bring it up.
Or the Wonder Wheel. Is that the name of it, or do I get it? No. Do I have it wrong?
David, no wonder.
Isn't there a machine called the Wonder Wheel?
Magic Circle.
David, I don't think this is a Pilates studio where you went to. It's like a pole dancing class or something.
One of my clients told me that she had a magic circle.
It was a Wonder Wheel. My bad.
My client told me, I was like, we were preparing for virtual sessions. I was like, what kind of exercise equipment do you have? And she's like, this, that, 1 2-pound, 1 3-pound, and a magic circle. And I was like, magic circle? And I look it up, and it's like, there's something completely different, that it's not an actual exercise tool.
I got it wrong. That's Wonder Wheel is some completely different.
Like the wheel.
I call it Pilates ring, right?
No, not. I was talking about. Fuck. There's one where it's like a seat, but it's curved. that people do like side bends on it.
Oh, and you press it. It's got springs
You could like
at the bottom.
it's like a
Is it a Pilates thing?
Yeah, it was in the studio.
Wait, is it the barrel?
Yes.
The big hump?
The barrel.
The Wonder Wheel, you
The
call it?
Wonder Wheel. Somebody sold him on that. That was Lauren probably. She sold him on the Wonder Wheel.
Wait, Wonder Wheel is that yoga wheel too, right? It's like you like lay on it and like extends your upper back.
I don't believe you anymore, David. I don't know.
The spine corrector.
Yeah, check this out. Wonder Wheel.
I gotta look at the library now as well and see.
I hate all of you.
David's making stuff.
Fuck
David's
all
gonna
of
have
you.
a magic waterfall or something in a minute.
Yeah, Lauren sold you on that one, and she just had you walk about your life thinking it's called the Wonder Wheel. That's pretty funny.
I don't know.
I don't know what you call
But one quick question, because Angel touched upon the different types of modalities in Pilates depending on trainers or different instructors. What's the difference between a classically trained Pilates instructor and what's the other school of thought? Is it modern? Contemporary? Yeah, what's the difference between that?
It really is it's just the certain movements. It really isn't that much different. I would say like the more classical Pilates would be you really like if you're curled up, you're constantly like your pelvis is tucked the entire time. That would be considered more classical. And then more in the contemporary is when it turns into more like a neutral pelvis. So it really just comes down to like certain exercises. It really isn't that much different. It's like you're just more tuck in your pelvis would be more classical.
Would there be a reason why one is better or worse than the other?
I mean, to hold your pelvis in neutral, like you need to be doing Pilates for a good amount of time to understand it, because we all have that natural curve. So, neutral pelvis, you're going to keep the natural curve in your low back. And so if you don't know how to hold yourself in that way, you're going to naturally like arch and then feel it in your low back. So that's why the original way was to like keep the pelvis tucked. So you're feeling your core working. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, even if I do my natural curve, I just need like a smidge tuck just because hypermobile, I'll naturally, like if I'm standing, I naturally sink into my low back. So I just add a tuck in there, but yeah, that's literally just the position of how your pelvis is in. And then there's certain exercises that are more contemporary that are not classical. So it really isn't that much.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wanted to touch on, so you no longer wear the Equinox, correct?
Yep.
So with
Deuces.
Bye. With you no longer being with the company, can you tell us about what you're envisioning or what your career trajectory looks like now that you're not with the company anymore?
Yeah, so right now I'm actually teaching independently. I don't know if you remember Laura Cruz. She was at 76th Street for a bit. She was like with the company for like 8 years. I know she was a Pilates manager at Printing House at one point. But she started at 76, then left, and then she came back.
Oh, she was working of Antoine, I want to say, right? Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's got a baby.
Yeah, she had a baby.
A little baby.
But the place that I think she's still, I haven't seen her, but the place she went to train independently, that's where I was like, oh yeah, like I've been to the space before, so why not? And it's on Balanced Body, which is my brand.
Oh, I know that. Yeah.
What I got trained on. That's another difference between classical and contemporary is the machines. So Garats is what we have, or what 76th Street had, and Peak, which is another one that's more like classical because the spring load is crazy. And then Balanced Body is one of the contemporary ones. So that's another difference.
Are there people that are very much like, oh, I only do contemporary, or like, oh, I'm classically trained?
Contemporary, not so much, but more the classical. Like you'll get some diehards.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But
are they like, uptight and shit?
Not really, but they're crazy strong. Like there's a woman, I forgot her name, but she has this place called The Ranch, and it's basically
The Ranch.
The Ranch. I know that sounds like kind of crazy, but I forgot her name. But she has a full-on classical way of teaching. Well, I think what's really cool, her machines are like bright red or leopard print or something, but it's Grotz machines. And it's like for continuing practitioners, and it's like she takes a certain amount. It's wild, but she's like in her 60s and like in better shape than everybody. Like it's
Wow.
Yeah. But yeah, so I'm doing independently now. So it's been kind of nice to be independent.
But now you're
Yeah.
like your own boss. Like I know, like even at a big company, we're kind of our own bosses in a way. Like, you know, it is a small little business, but there's always that umbrella of, are you gonna add 10, 20 sessions on this week? And it's like, nah, bro.
I think also a big one is I definitely get caught up in the details. It's not the best, but it's gotten better. But I think just sometimes when you're working with a bigger company, they're like, just get them moving, just give them the hard workout, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, well,
Trying the numbers out. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's not what it's about, of just powering through and like get a good work. I'm like, no, because I love the breaking down of it. Like I love the details. I love the nuances. I mean, I know that's not everybody, but it's kind of nice to now be in a situation where like, oh, I can actually break this down and get back to just enjoying it, instead of like, okay, we're just doing this to bang out numbers and get client. Like it's just like, it's not just, it's not just about that.
Genuine in a way.
Yeah. So doing that, and then the possible thought of going to physical therapy, like going into physical therapy and just getting more knowledge of the human body, and then just, the whole neurological to the physical, and go full on nerding out. It's been on the thought process of going in that direction. So
no, that's cool. I think it's been, like you mentioned, the rentals in New York City, COVID being that effect. I think COVID has, in the fitness industry, also enabled us to see what life is or could be without said company or what's up, David?
Umbrella.
Yeah, it's just, hey, this is what it would be like if you were on your own, some sort of taster. So there's been some positive outlets in that. And I think the other thing as well that has probably been a challenge, I don't know if you can attest to this, but I guess personal training can get off lucky in this sense that you can go to the park, grab a couple of bands, a little dumbbell, and go crush a workout, have a TRX. Pilates, it's hard unless the building has the reformer so I know my girlfriend had a couple clients that had that in their gym in the building, but
wow.
But that's a relatively new thing. A lot of gyms and buildings, it's just the training aspect of it, correct? And that's very rare to have the reformer or Cadillac in the building. So, but right now, most buildings still aren't allowing trainer or Pilates instructors in the building. So I can imagine that's a hard concept for you too, unless, as it sounds as though you're obviously doing in person, but like if you're, like you said, you're not focused on the equipment, but you feel that, or maybe I'm interpreting that you feel you can get more out of a session with a client if they are with more focus on those equipment as opposed to being mat Pilates, or there can be more variety, right? It's like anything, more tools, more variety to a sense. But has that been a challenge that you you've been limited with equipment for certain aspects of the pandemic?
Yes. I was lucky enough that I did have certain clients that still did virtual sessions or continued with me doing virtual because they didn't mind doing mat. And then also too, there were certain clients that I can throw some like crazy mat stuff at them and like really have fun with it. But then I did have clients who were like, let me know when the gym opens back up, because they wanted the equipment. They didn't want to do mat. So, I mean, that was an interesting one to have that part of it. And then the second gym's open, I was like, okay, we can go back to doing equipment stuff. So there is the people that, okay, if I'm paying this price, and it means I'm paying for the equipment. And it's just, again, people are like, oh, mat Pilates. And it's like, well, no, it takes a lot of strength, but
to do,
it's like, I think it's anything. It's like when you're feeling, there's some kind of equipment or some kind of something to help you, it feels like you're actually doing something instead of just like oh, I have to like think about how I'm holding myself, and like then that body awareness comes in, and it's like it takes a hot second. Like I mean, I've been doing Pilates before I got trained, I was doing it since the age of 15.
Oh,
so
wow.
it's like I've built that awareness.
Foundation,
even like from dance, it's like you build that foundation, and so like it's going to take a hot second, and then for some people you can teach it over and over again, it still doesn't click.
Yeah.
But like if they're on a machine or they're lifting a weight, they're like, okay, I'm actually doing something, I feel something. But if it's just like a mat, it kind of
so psychological, isn't it?
Yeah. So this is why going into PT, like the psychological, when it breaks it down, it's like, yes.
Thanks for joining us, Marie. If anyone who's listening would like to, maybe train with you, or if you have any resources, where can people find you?
I'm at Studio 26 at 250 West 26th Street on the 4th floor is the studio. So yeah, that is where I'm at on the weekends.
Cool.
Instagram handle, Facebook, anything like that, website?
Graham, come on.
You went straight to the location, but
he's like, yo,
come find me.
No, so my Instagram, you can laugh at my Instagram handle, but it's hipswish92. I know. But yeah, that's my Instagram handle, where to find me, and yes.
Slide in that DM for Pilates.
For Pilates. Yes.
Perfect. All right. Thanks, Marie.
Thank Marie.
You so much. We appreciate it.
Easy. Cool.
That was awesome.
Awesome episode. We learned a lot. And we need to continue to have more diverse guests. I feel like Pilates, we just like scratched the surface. Right?
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, we need to get more Pilates instructors and people that you said are just in the broader spectrum of this industry. That's awesome. That's good. Hopefully our listeners will appreciate that. But yeah, that was good. Good episode.
All right. So we'll wrap it up. Thanks guys for listening, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Bye guys. Have a good one.
Bye.